Well, first off, just tell us a little bit about Haikasoru.
Well, Haikasoru is an imprint that is dedicated to Japanese science fiction and translation, and it was launched by Viz Media about coming up on 5 years ago now. And some of our titles include Battle Royale by Koshun Takami, which is a very famous cult novel, and All You Need Is Kill by Hiroshi Sakurazaka, which is going to be adapted, or has been adapted into a film called Edge of Tomorrow, which will be out this summer.
You just brought up All You Need Is Kill. Do you know how closely Edge of Tomorrow is going to go with the book?
Well, let's put it this way. And, All You Need Is Kill, the main character is an 18-year-old Japanese kid, and Edge of Tomorrow, the main character is Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
So things have changed. The Japanese theme is, as far as I understand, entirely gone, which is not my choice. Please don't write me angry letters. I am not responsible for any of that. I'm on your side. If you're against it, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
And of course, there used to be a story about a raw recruit going to a horse battle. Now it's a story of a guy who has never been in the war before, but he was he wrote for like the Stars and Stripes newspaper, was involved in psychological operations, like a desk job, an army desk job. And my understanding is that he pisses the wrong person off. So to punish him, they send him into this battle for the first time ever. And of course, he's a terrible soldier.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
That makes a lot more sense because we've been trying to figure it out because, like you said, we know that the actual story is about a new recruit, a young guy,
Yeah.
and we've been really trying to figure out how Tom Cruise fits the role. But that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we're reading it. We're like, I don't see this being Tom Cruise's inner monologue for some reason.
No, but the conceit is pretty much the same, where he dies and comes back to life. It's similar, broadly similar to playing a video game, where you don't know how to play a video game, you die right away. Then you learn a little bit about it, and you improve with each iteration of the battle.
So, how long has this adaptation process been? Like, did they contact you guys a few years ago, or do you know, like, has it been pretty quick?
It has been super quick if you compare it to things like Ender's Game, which took 30 years. And of course, we're still waiting for like a good Foundation movie, and iRobot took 45 years. What happened was a few years ago, there was a film you might remember called Dragonball Evolution.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
remember.
yeah. So that was had nothing to do with that. That was a pretty terrible film. And so subsequent to that, my understanding is that Viz launched Viz Productions to try to have more of an influence on the material that we're bringing over to the U.S. When it becomes adapted. That way it can be better.
Okay.
So we had this guy, Jason Haas, down in LA, who's a big-time producer, working on getting different manga and stuff to Hollywood. And one of my first meetings when I started my job was with him. And he said, do you have any good ideas for movies? And I said, you mean ideas for good movies? Like, no. Good ideas for movies. Right? Those are two different things. So I said, oh, well, there's All You Need Is Kill, which is sort of a high concept, right? You can tell it in one line. It's Groundhog Day, but with soldiers, or Groundhog Day meets Starship Troopers, and that worked. And at the time, there was some other movie about armor, space battle armor type of thing being shifted around, and there was some issue where it wasn't going to be made. So we had like sort of this, hey, there's armor in our movie, in our book thing. And then I wrote a 2-page treatment, and then things started moving very quickly. The treatment didn't go very far. People don't read in Hollywood, so that might have been somebody's assistant's intern reading the treatment. But then Viz Production had the great idea of just having somebody write the script on what they call a spec script, where you write it for free, which was not happening in Hollywood at all. So this guy Dante Harper wrote a script and became sort of like an underground hit in Hollywood. People just reading the script saying, "Oh, it's a great script," and Warner Brothers bought it for $3 million. And once Warner Brothers buys something for $3 million, then things have to start moving. You have to justify the cost. Now, if you look at the final draft, I read Dante Harper's draft, and it was very similar to the book.
Yeah.
With Japanese young hero and that kind of thing. So now I think 5 or 6 writers later, which is typical of Hollywood, it took off. And once Tom Cruise got on there, and once Doug Liman, the director, got on there, things moved very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's surprisingly quickly. I mean, on one level, it's my entire career at Viz Media has been on seeing this movie slowly unfold and waiting and saying, oh, should we reprint the book? Should we do this and that? But now, looking back, it really zipped right by. So it was a quick thing given Hollywood's tendency to sell things for decades.
Cool. So there's All You Need Is Kill. You mentioned Battle Royale. Are there any other Haikasoru properties that have been made into movies that people might not know about?
Nothing. Well, there have been some that have been anime. So we have a great series called Rocket Girls of 2 of the 4 novels we brought out, and it's a very fun anime about young girls on sort of Apollo-style old-fashioned rocket ships, with being a sort of a low-level space program on the Solomon Islands, and they have the problem of payload. How can we get our rockets into space? Well, if we hire 14-year-old girls, they're light. But it's sort of very comical, but also at the same time, it's hard science fiction, so it's a great way to get girls into science fiction and engineering and things like that. We had a great book called Marduk Scramble, which is becoming an anime in 3 big parts. And I know the first part, I think, was released, and a manga was released of it as well. So if you want to know the ending to Marduk Scramble, you don't need to wait another 5 years. You can read the actual novel. I'll bring it here because it's an epic. An epic, you can see it here. There
it is.
It's like the San Francisco phone book. It's 800 pages or so.
Wow.
So, if your mom says, "Oh, you got to read a book this summer," like, "Okay, Mom, I will." Just read a gigantic book like that. And nothing's not a movie yet, but it was a famous anime. And Tom Cruise is attached to this one as well. It's Yukikaze, which is about fighter ships going to another dimension to fight other fighter ships. And it's sort of philosophical in that we don't need to know what the fighter ships are, actually know that we exist. Like, are they at war with us, humanity, or are they at war with our ships? Are we even superfluous to this entire conflict? And so Tom Cruise is attached to that, and it's a good anime. We've got 2 volumes of that, Yukikaze and Good Luck Yukikaze. There's a third, and if the movie starts moving forward, we might bring out that 3rd volume called Broken Arrow. So if you like movies, there are things to do that you can sort of see. A lot of them are sort of anime or cartoons. Oh, we also did 2 video game novels. One for Ico, Castle in the Mist, sort of the cult classic. And we did a Metal Gear Solid novel. I normally don't do tie-in novels, but these were novels by real novelists, not by hacks. These were people like, Miyuki Miyabi, who we published 4 books of, and who has mystery novels all over the place in the U.S. as well as in Japan. And the Metal Gear Solid novels are by Project Ito, one of my favorite of our novelists, who was an award winner in Japan and also here in the U.S. for his other novels.
Well, I was actually going to ask about that because, I know that you guys did do those video game novels. Are you guys planning on doing anything for the Metal Gear Solid 5?
Nope. Sadly, Project Ito is deceased. He died very young in his early 30s, but he was a huge Metal Gear Solid fan, and so he wrote this as like a love letter to the franchise. He wasn't just looking to get a quick 85,000 yen or whatever you got paid to write this novel. But if there was another novel from a video game that was written by a very good writer, we would think about bringing it out. But we're not looking just to fill the shelves with anything that has a brand on it. We want to have high quality material, which can come from anywhere. It can be original, it can be from a video game, it can be from a film. So we're very open, but at the same time, you want that highest quality material.
Do you think that there's any difference in the way that mystery stories are told in Japan versus America?
Oh, yes, definitely. Well, in the West in general, right? Because in the West, we have the golden age of mysteries with a lot of rules. You can't have secret twins. You can't have changes in the point of view to hide things. You can't have invisible, odorless poisons. Japan never had that. They never made those little promises to the reader that the golden age of mystery, like Agatha Christie and Dorothy Sayers and people like that did. So Japanese mysteries tend to be really strange. They tend to involve things that we might consider trickery. Mm-hmm. We have a book out by Otsu Ichi, which is more of a horror mystery, I'd say, called Summer Fireworks on My Corpse. There's actually 2 novels in one. And in one novel in that book, Fire Summer Works on My Corpse, basically there's a first-person narrator, but we don't realize till the end, not to ruin the book for anybody, but it's an engaging book, plus there are 2 stories in there, that some of the first-person narrative is happening months before the actual events that are mysterious to us, so the plot, basically.
Interesting.
Oh, it was months ago he's talking. And that kind of thing happens a fair amount in Japanese mysteries.
What about for sci-fi? Are there similar differences?
You know what? Actually, Japanese science fiction is a lot like the American science fiction of the 70s. So there's a lot of emphasis on hard science fiction, that is science fiction where you can actually go there with a slide rule or your scientific calculator and say, oh, it all makes sense. They actually know math. In the U.S. long ago, everything can be like, faster than light travel and lightsabers. Star Wars kind of ruined science fiction. It made everything like fantasy in space. Instead of science.
Totally. Yeah, you're right.
So Japan loves hard science fiction. So that's one major difference. But it's very similar to our hard science fiction that we used to write. There's also a lot more teen girl heroes.
Yes.
A teen girl in Japan can do anything. They can ride a spaceship. They can conquer the planet. They can be super evil. Here in the U.S., it's very hard to find, I guess the term is a strong female character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Often they're either just men with boobs or they're, don't exist in the story.
Yeah. You rarely get the Full Metal bitch.
That's right.
So how did you get involved initially with Haikasoru?
Well, it was sort of the classic example of what you don't do to get a job in publishing. I applied based on an ad.
Huh.
And I'd been a freelancer for a long time. I'd been a writer for a long time. I edited some books. I was nominated for the Hugo Award for a magazine I helped run called Clark's World Magazine. I did an anthology for tour books. I'd also worked in translation with a friend of mine for a book on some Korean politics. So I had translation experience. And I walked in there. I actually never had a full-time day job before in my life. So it was a very weird interview. They'd ask me things like, can you use the copy machine? Like, I don't know. Maybe I could use a copy machine. Do you have interns? You do? Great. The intern can use the copy machine for me. But anyway, because I knew a lot about publishing, knew a lot about science fiction. I knew everybody in the science fiction field. So I spent 10 years mastering science fiction as a community and as a genre. And that's what they wanted. They wanted someone who they could just plug in and make that happen.
Are you also interested in manga and anime?
Not really. No, actually, that was one of the interview questions during the first interview at my job was, oh, do you like manga and anime too? I'm like, no. And I thought to myself at the time, oh, that was the bad thing to say, but actually it was the good thing to say. Because at Viz, like other companies that have a lot of fans because they love the product, whenever there's a job opening, we get tons and tons of applications saying, oh, I don't know anything about being a janitor. I don't know anything about, being an IT dork, but I love manga and anime. Can I come here over to your office and meet Pikachu? That kind of thing. So you get a lot of sort of fanboy applications, which they want if you're doing manga and anime. They want you to have experience on manga and anime. They want you to know Japanese if you can. But for my job, I wanted to do new science fiction. So I didn't know a lot about manga and anime. I still don't. I've read some more now. Obviously, it's all over the office, and I enjoy it. But primarily, I'm interested in prose fiction.
What's some of your favorite sci-fi, American or Japanese?
Oh, I like Philip K. Dick. Scanner Darkly, which was also a very good movie, very unusually to have a good science fiction movie from Hollywood. Harlan Ellison, Samuel R. Delaney, one of the best novelists of any genre of the 20th and 21st century. So actually, as you can tell, I'm naming people from the 70s because I'm old. I also like some new people who are coming out, and actually I was happy to publish some of them. We had an anthology last year called The Future's Japanese, which combined Japanese fiction with Westerners or Westerners, I should say, writing about Japanese themes. And we won a Hugo Award for that with Ken Liu, one of the major new writers whose first novel is coming out next year, but he's written many, many short stories that have won a lot of awards. I love Kathy Sadia, who is a great author of fantasy and also some science fiction. And I just was reading the other day this book by Andy Weir, a Scottish man, called The Martian, sort of a Jack London type of Tip of the Fire story. It's a guy on Mars, stuck on Mars by himself, running out of air, running out of food, and trying to figure out how he can survive 4 years when by the time a rescue ship can come get him. It's just amazingly well written. And it's sort of the hard science fiction we were talking about before. What else can I do? How can I get water with these potatoes? How can I start a fire without blowing myself up because I'm surrounded by nuclear material? And it goes on through every single thing, everything that you think in your workaday life is easy to do, as of course is nearly impossible for him. So he cannot make any mistakes. And of course, he's 4 years away from help. And for the first half of the book, people don't even know he's still alive. So it's a hugely interesting puzzle, hard science fiction novel, which I think is going to be huge. There's already a lot of buzz. I think it was originally self-published, and then Crown picked it up. So it's going to be pretty big. So in about a month or so, when people say, "Oh, have you read The Martian?" You say, "Yeah, I read that." You want to get You want to get in early on The Martian.
Nice. Well, one of the things I really liked, we read Ken Liu's story from The Future's Japanese, and I found it amazing that it was so well told and such a big epic story, but there's very little action. It's not like all you need is kill, where there's aliens and killing people and stuff, and I thought that was so fascinating because I feel like a lot of American sci-fi honestly All You Need Is Kill makes sense to apply into an American movie because there's so much action. But a lot of these stories are just like really great stories, but you wouldn't necessarily probably see them as a film unless you were, trying to make like an Academy Award winning film, because it's just more a lot of like, human heart and stuff. It's not really a question, is it?
Not at all.
No, but I liked it a lot.
I agree with your comment. And I'll say that one great thing about science fiction is that it still has a lot of short stories. There's still like a dozen good magazines and 10 good anthologies a year. And let's say compare that to mystery magazines, where that may be 2 mystery magazines and 3 or 4 anthologies a year. So it's a great place for writers to experiment with concepts and ideas that don't have to look like a Hollywood film. So I love reading short fiction. I love editing short fiction. And you occasionally, very rarely, you see a film that can do that. Gattaca is probably the most famous film. That's not an action-packed blast. And one last year that I saw that was really good was Europa Report. I don't know if you saw that one. It was very interesting. It was actually much like Alien in a way, but instead of Alien being horrific, it's like the journey to discovery. Even though these astronauts are being torn to pieces by this creature, they're like, "Oh, we discovered a new creature! It's amazing!" So the grotesque of horror to the sublime of discovery. So that was an amazing film, I thought. Had a few scientific errors, but an amazing film.
Are there any other Haikasoru properties that you'd like to see turned into Hollywood films? Well,
clearly I like to stay employed, so I like to see them all made. I guess one thing I like to see is the Book of Virus by Sakio Komatsu made into a film. It actually was made into a film in 1980. You can still see it, I think, on YouTube. Don't tell people I sent you to YouTube they're watching an illegal film. But it's basically about a virus that kills everyone in the world except the people in Antarctica who are scientists. And then one of them realizes, oh, so since everybody there is dead in the mainland, who's watching the nuclear missiles to make sure they don't go off? Let's send someone up there to turn them off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's some guy's voyage, basically with a small boat, then walking up from Chile to Washington, D.C. to turn off certain devices. So it's a really epic in a way and really heartbreaking because it goes through the first couple of deaths. Then you see tons of people dying, society changing, then realizing that there is nothing left at all except for these 110 people or so from Japan, Russia, the United States, and France who all have bases down in Antarctica. Oh, wow. So that could be a really gripping film. I think Sakurazaka's other movie, Slum Online, could be a great film too, because it's about a kid. It's not even science fiction. It's about a kid who loves playing MMOs. And like a combat MMO, Karate Town. And he's a college kid who doesn't have a lot going on, like a lot of people who love video games. And he kind of has a girlfriend, but maybe she's not really a girlfriend. And he's trying to fight this guy in the MMO, and he can't figure out a way to win. So it could be like a Karate Kid thing, but for not actually having any real karate. So that could be a good movie.
Sounds awesome.
And I guess the Ito books, Harmony, which is a great satire. It's about the future where all our problems have been solved. There's universal health care. Of course, society is a little different than if you drink caffeine. It's like, smoking crack. You're drinking caffeine? What's wrong with you? Don't you know that's not healthy? And there's a lot of satirical moments there. And there's another book of his called Genocidal Oregon about a guy who has broken down the structure of human languages to make the people become genocidal. And someone trying, a special forces operator trying to stop him before he can commit more genocides. And actually that book leads into Harmony. That is, the disasters that that end the world in Genocidal Oregon lead to the utopia of Harmony. But the utopia is not always cracked up to be either. So that'd be a great, I think, pair of films. Yeah.
So we know, like, All You Need Is Kill is being turned into a movie. Are there any of your other books that are going to be turned into animes that are in the works?
I don't know about anime, but All You Need Is Kill is also getting a manga. Japanese comic book, which is coming out now, and Shonen Jump Alpha, which is the online magazine that we put out or that we bring over. And also, we're doing a graphic novel.
Nice.
So an American-style graphic novel, which I wrote, and Lee Ferguson, who did like Black Canary and a lot of things for DC, and a good independent comic called Miranda Mercury, which is about a black superheroine in the future that starts on issues like 475. So it starts in the middle, like it imagines 25 years of continuity before it begins. So it's a really fun comic book. That's coming out. Actually, we were doing the graphic novel first. Then the Japanese said, oh, we're doing a manga. I'm like, oh, God. Now we got 2 at once to try to sell. But they're very different. Like the way the manga is very different than graphic novels in general. Ours is in color. Theirs is much longer. Yeah. And different art styles, different things that we concentrated on is what we keep and what you throw away because you can't you can't just write every single sentence in a novel into a graphic novel, because otherwise you end up with a lot of panels of people just talking and being crushed by their own dialogue balloons. So it could be interesting if you're interested in comic books at all. Seeing the manga and the graphic novel side by side would be a very an education for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I definitely would love to see what the jackets look like from an artist perspective. Because when I was reading about them in the book, I felt a little. I don't want to say bummed out about the trailer for Edge of Tomorrow, but it's definitely not how they describe it in the book.
Yeah,
it feels a lot more epic and a lot more mech suity.
Yeah, definitely. And we're different things. I mean, we were told when we were doing the graphic novel, don't make it like the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
So I said, can I see the movie? Like, no, you can't see the movie. I said, so you want me to guess what the movie's like and not do that? I'm like, yes, do that. So our armor is like sort of retro future. It's like from the 50s, the way Buck Rogers might have, or Flash Gordon might have armor.
Awesome.
Oh, the manga looks just like the book. Like, huge clunking around, gigantic pile drivers, gigantic rockets. And I think the movie, even though it's not like the book, looks really realistic. Like if in 25 years when we have battle armor, or 30 years when we have battle armor, it's going to look like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that way it's cool. It's having a dark and gritty future, which I enjoy.
Definitely. And is there anything else coming up from Haikasoru that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, sure. We're doing a Battle Royale slam book, basically a book of essays about Battle Royale.
Oh, wow.
From famous writers from Japan and the U.S. We got John Skipp, the famous splatterpunk author of the 1980s, talking about his childhood in Argentina, where he just see people be gunned down in the streets and how it reminds him of Battle Royale.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
We have Sam Hamm, who wrote the Batman films, sort of recasting Battle Royale with American teen stars. Like, will Molly Ringwald survive, or will Cameron from Bueller's Day Off survive? That kind of thing.
Oh, that's great.
A lot of great fun essays. That's about professional wrestling, because Battle Royale is a professional wrestling term. About feminism inside Battle Royale, the different female characters. So that's a great thing. If you ever want to write a term paper about Battle Royale, like if you're a kid, and you have to, your teacher makes you read a book, you're like, okay, I will read a book, Battle Royale. You can now have sources for a term paper. So that's coming out. We're doing a new translation of Battle Royale, because it's always been sort of a clunky translation. It's before my time, and now I finally got the chance to hire a new translator to fix everything that I think is wrong with Battle Royale. We have a new anthology coming out called Phantasm Japan, in the way that The Futurist Japanese was a science fiction anthology. This would be a fantasy anthology. So fantasies about Japan and from Japan, including some really amazingly weird Japanese fantasies that are impossible to describe. We actually couldn't translate it without having the author help us.
Oh, wow.
Because he invented a lot of strange words that the average translator will not understand. So he has to, So we got an American in Japan who's translating this, talking to the author to make sure it'll make sense.
That's really neat.
Yep, and we have bestsellers like Zachary Mason, who wrote the book, The Lost Books of the Odyssey. He's written 5 short stories for us to go in the middle between, like, the 5 interludes between these stories. Got a couple, Tim Pratt, Hugo winner, has written a very fun story about sort of the kind of guy who wears a fedora everywhere and practices with katanas. And he names a real Japanese fox spirit on OkCupid. So that's a really funny story. Got a bunch of great things coming up.
Great. Cool. Well, I think we're all set. Thank you so much,
Great.
Nick.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Anytime.